Hey guys, this is CITYWLKR with the Crimson Children Collective, and in today's video I'm going to be going over how I prepare my tracks for my mixdowns coming from the original project, what I do in a separate project for the mixdowns where I do stems and stuff, and then how I prepare the mixdown set for the final mastering before I send off the track or send it to friends. That sort of thing, you know the drill. So we're going to be covering my track Pay and Debt, which just came out on Sub 49 on April 4th, along with a remix EP from the rest of the guys on the label. I highly encourage you guys to go check out the track. It's one of my favorite tracks I've ever made, and the remixes from the guys are really top quality, and it was really fun giving them the stems, I should say, and hearing like what they could pull off basically. So looking at the project, there are 7 stems, which corresponds from 7 groups of tracks coming from the original project. We've got bass in audio, bass from the build, the bass in MIDI, the drums, the effects, some other audio stuff, and the sub bass from the entire track. So I'm going to break down how I've exported all of these and what I've done with all of them to get them pretty much fairly consistent. So the bass in audio, it's a separate group inside the entire bass group. So there's a big bass group, and then there's bass in audio and bass in MIDI to split them up. So the bass in audio, I have no racks or anything on the group like I would normally, or some other people would. Since it's mainly just stuff coming from samples, then I normally just do either EQing or volume tweaks, maybe some different sort of processing, but it's never on the entire group, it's only on each individual bass. But yeah, it's mostly pretty much always just EQing and volume tweaking. The bass from the build is mainly the combination of the basses in audio and in MIDI, recorded in the entire, like maybe the first 8 bars of the drop, and then just filtered and reverbed and sidechained and everything. You get the point. The bass in MIDI normally does have a group that I put it in, which does have a post-processing rack on the entire thing, just to make everything loud and consistent, as same as the bass audio group. It's pretty much, I only do the rack on the MIDI group since it's coming from Serum mainly. Then not all of the patches are consistent with volume, so I chuck that rack on the entire group to make everything nice, flat and level and crisp and everything. Then the drums, I do have a small rack on them. It's not as intense as the one that would be coming in the bass MIDI group. But it's mainly a parallel multiband compression and then a soft glue compressor to make everything nice and flat and make sure it doesn't peak as well, which is I'm finding really difficult to achieve in the drums right now. Then the effects, really no racks, it's just risers, some snares, sweeps. You know, you don't really need much processing in that sense. It's just ear candy, either white noise, snare, builds, reverse sweeps, impacts, you name it, that sort of stuff. This other audio stuff is mainly pads, be it like a single one or layered, some vocal samples, some extra stuff that I don't know where to fit basically. And then the sub bass, which has got the same rack from the bass MIDI group, but it's just the sine wave obviously from the sub, and then I either make the sub like steeper in terms of how many frequencies it reaches and how intense the frequencies I want it to reach basically. So I'll give you an example. For this track I was referencing a little bit of Phlegmatic Dogs with Quattro Cats, where they have the really loud fundamental and then a really loud second harmonic to make it that much more aggressive and like G-house almost. So pretty much went with that approach, and I'll play you guys a short snippet of the drop so you guys get a feel of what I'm on about. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna dive into all of the stems individually and pretty much just explain my process and how I did it. It isn't too complicated, but just keep in mind, I do pretty much all of the mixing for all of the stems, all of the groups and everything in the original project as I go. So I never leave anything behind before the mixdown, just so precisely I can do either as little work in the mixdown as possible, since everything is already rather well mixed in the original project. Then I just have to put all the stems together so that it's just one cleaner project or if I have to touch up like one of the stems or anything, then I can just drag in the stem and just boost the entire thing somewhere if I need to, or pretty much anything just to make everything nice and level. I'm gonna start with the bass in audio since it's pretty much the entire first drop and a bit of the second drop as well. Let me pull up span as well. Okay, so pretty much the sequencing of the bass and like all of the drops basically was mainly inspired by Tynan and Dusty Cloud in a weird way. So yeah, it's pretty much going for a mainly low mid focused bass region, so between like 150 to like 500 hertz more or less. If I solo this. Pretty much, yeah, it's mainly the low mids. Since I'm going for a bit of a G house kind of approach, then I wanted the low mids to be really intense as well, to complement the sub and the kick as well, obviously. So yeah, pretty much it was mainly getting everything clear in the high end, but not too loud. The first bass was a challenge actually, because I had to really dip down the high end to a point where I was comfortable in hearing it pretty much over and over, and also getting it wide enough to be a decent stereo experience, if that makes any sense, but also not making it like just completely wide so that it wouldn't be able to be played out in a club or anything like that. Basically, I'll go over the sub now since that's what I was mainly worried about. So this is what I mean by the Quattro Cats influence, where you've got the really loud first harmonic, and then the second harmonic follows kind of closely behind it, because this makes the sub feel, at least to me, it gives like a deeper and more aggressive feel in a way. And then since the high-end stuff isn't as important in this case, it still is, but that's like, you can leave a little bit of headroom for high-end. Then yeah, it's pretty much just getting that done, point where it would complement the low-mid feel of the basses and the drums, so that it would pretty much just fit all together rather nicely. I pull up Ozone as well. You can see it's mainly rather mono, but it's also giving it some width so that it isn't just like only the mono signal, which I mean it's desirable, but it's like you can get away with a bit of wideness as well, basically. And then pretty much, yeah, the bass from the build is pretty much the sequence of either one of the drops or one and a half of the drop. And then just filtered with reverb and sidechain to lead it into the drop rather nicely, basically. I can play that if you want as well. So it's pretty much the drop just filtered, frequency shifting, and sidechained, and reverb as well. You can hear the difference basically. And the reverb is also stopping right here at this last bar before the drop, basically. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Then the drums are very, very loud in, at least the kick knocks really hard. That's just the kick in the drop for this first half only. And I've got some perk loops coming in. Clap coming in as well. Really a little bit loud, I would say, on the pre-clap even now. Then yeah, pretty much just giving it some wideness, filling out the high end nicely as well, so that it isn't just left alone. Some hi-hat loops pitched down as well to fill out the percussion as well. And yeah, the kick sub is very loud as well. So that's the kick sub just on its own, because I wanted to make it really fat for the low end, obviously, since it's G-House. That pretty much covers the drums. It's all mainly just playing with percussion, playing with filling out the low mids as well, but without it conflicting in the basses, filling out some of the high end a little bit as well to not leave it alone. Then the effects, I actually turned these up since I was having a little bit of trouble getting as much tension as I wanted for in the build. So this is that's the Matroda, like it's one of the Matroda snare samples from his sample pack, and just with a couple of risers as well. Like you get the point of the build. It's sad tension. The other audio stuff I did not boost in volume, but I boosted the high end because I was having a little bit of trouble getting the vocal sample that I used in the break to be heard.
Well, let me quit then. When we have paid our debt to you. If you insist.
And the pad as well, since it was kind of muted.
Well, let me quit then. When we have paid our debt to you.
So it was pretty much the only yeah, so the only stuff I did tweak with this was just boosting the high end so that it was it made it clear enough to be able to heard nicely, and that it wasn't also ear piercing basically. And then pretty much, yeah, the sub I turned down 1 dB just to make it not clip to if I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not virtual, right? I can't pull off plus 14 dB with the snare transient on the master. So yeah, the sub I did turn down 1 dB because I felt like it was a little bit too loud after I had exported it from the project. That's from the original, so I turned it down 1 dB just to make it slightly more tame and not clip like really hard basically. Another thing I would also like to say is it doesn't matter if you do stem mixdowns and it's clipping hard. Just make sure that once you're actually doing this stage of the mixdown, everything isn't clipping and it's distorting everything. If it's distorting everything, like I was having trouble with an unreleased remix rather recently actually, I turned pretty much everything down till I found that it was not clipping too hard, and it was like listenable for mixing as it was here basically. So like you can tell it's mixing. Sorry, you can tell it's clipping like super hard, but it isn't at the point of distorting like massively and like, well, not crashing, but you get the point that it's not distorting ridiculously, and you can actually still listen with some detail, or pretty much most of the detail, to everything. So yeah, that's pretty much it guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure to stay tuned by subscribing down below, follow all of us, follow me on SoundCloud if you want, do all that good stuff. That's your choice. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too technical in terms of the mixdown stuff, but I just thought I'd share a bit of an insight into how I prepare all of my tracks for mixing and mastering basically. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.